Over the past few episodes of History Traveler, we started the ultimate summer road trip, hitting some historic sites all along the length of Route 66. We just left the state capitol in Springfield, Illinois, where we visited the tomb of Lincoln. We're headed to St. Louis, and we just hit maybe the coolest stretch of the road that I have seen so far. This is a stretch along the old alignment from the 1920s and 30s, and it is made all of hand-laid brick, and it just looks so stinking cool. So anyway, we're going to drive this section as we make our way to our next destination in St. Louis, Missouri. All right, we are continuing our way towards St. Louis on the original part of Route 66, the 1926 alignment. And there was just something that we had to stop and see because I think it's hilarious. So when this part of the road was built in 1926, well, while the pavement was still wet, apparently some dadgum turkeys decided to just run across that wet pavement and permanently leave their mark on this part of the highway. And being a hunter and an outdoorsman, well, I couldn't pass this up. Here's something that I can tell you is that these were hens that ran across here. Gobblers have typically a longer middle toe there. But anyway, yeah, I have a lot of experience with that from having shot lots of turkeys in my life. But anyway, yeah, there's the part of Route 66 that is now forever commemorated as the part of the road that the turkeys ran across when the concrete was wet. All right, so here's one thing that I am learning already on this trip. We haven't even made it out of Illinois, and there is so much to see along this route. So I only have a limited amount of time in order to complete this trip, so I'm going to have to get a little bit more disciplined and realize that there are just some things that I'm going to have to pass up. So anyway, there are the turkey tracks. We're going to hop back in the vehicle, and next stop is going to be St. Louis. We have made it all the way to the Illinois border, and we're getting ready to cross the Mississippi River. Here's old Route 66 right ahead of us. And to cross the Mississippi, well, travelers along the route in the 1930s all the way through to the 1970s would cross this bridge right here, the Chain of Rocks Bridge. Unfortunately for us, the Chain of Rocks Bridge is not open to road traffic. So in order to meet our mark of staying on Route 66, we're gonna have to walk this one. we are close to halfway out now on the Chain of Rocks Bridge. And this bridge was started in 1927. They started on both the east and west side simultaneously. It's a mile long. They completed the piers, I think, in August of 1928. And there was supposed to be like a grand opening on New Year's Day of 1929, but ended up being like some pretty nasty weather and ice and everything kind of put it off. So they ended up having their grand opening in July of 1929. And this bridge became a major fixture on Route 66. Right now we are looking north from the bridge, and there you can see I-270 in the distance. And the reason that the Chain of Rocks Bridge is called the Chain of Rocks Bridge is because just north of here, where we have the camera pointed, well, there was a 17-mile shoal, or a series of rocky rapids, that was called the Chain of Rocks. Modern engineering has submerged it beneath the Mississippi River. But anyway, it was kind of a problem for boat travelers. And probably one of the more interesting sections of the Chain of Rocks Bridge is this iconic 30-degree turn right here in the middle. So if you are the type of person who gets some pretty severe anxiety on bridges, this bridge would probably not do you well. Interesting thing, during World War II, this bridge, which was built for like $1.2 million, was originally kind of a bright red color, and during World War II they ended up painting it green so that it would blend in more and couldn't be seen from the air. There's a movie in the 80s called Escape from New York that was directed by John Carpenter that was filmed here. Another interesting little tidbit. And in the 1970s, they were actually going to destroy this bridge when I-270 over there became kind of like the main thoroughfare. But because the price of scrap was so low during the 1970s, well, they ended up scrapping the idea because it was going to be costing way more than it's worth. All right, we're going to go ahead and get back on the road and start making our way towards the city. All right, well, we have made our way down the Mississippi a little bit, and as you are coming into St. Louis, well, probably what is now the most iconic memorial that you will see as you are crossing the river is this big old thing right here, the Gateway Arch. As we are looking out across the Mississippi River here, well, from this spot we can see another pretty iconic structure here in St. Louis. The Gateway City is not only home to the Gateway Arch, but also another gateway that brought people to this side of the Mississippi River. What we were looking at is Eads Bridge. This was the first arched steel bridge in the world and was considered a wonder of its day. We might talk about it a little bit later. But for now, we are going to go inside and take a look at this iconic memorial right here in St. Louis. So the arch is not just some, plain structure that is for looks. You can actually go up in there, and they have a museum here beneath the arch. So anyway, we're gonna go check that out today. We just got inside here and are now below the arch, where they have a museum that is dedicated to westward expansion in the United States and the role that the city of St. Louis played during that period of time. Now, We aren't going to be able to see everything in here today. We're on a little bit of a tight time schedule, but we'll hit the high points and kind of see what we can. There's a reason why St. Louis is where it is. We are just south of the confluence of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. And in 1763, this would have been French territory, and the governor of the Louisiana Territory granted a guy by the name of Pierre Laclede the trading rights here in this area. So here you can see his painting on the left. On the right is his 14-year-old stepson, Auguste Chateau. And they loaded up on these barges and started making their way up the Mississippi River and ended up setting up a fur trading post right here because it was on high ground by these limestone bluffs. And this would give them a site where they could start establishing trade with the Native Americans by way of the Missouri River. It was called St. Louis after King Louis IX of France. So once the French establish a trading post here, they are going to do a lot of trading with the Osage Indian tribe, and the thing that they really desired were furs from the Native Americans. So here you can see this deer skin here, and they also have something for tactile learners who want to touch and feel things. They have some examples of a tan deer hide and also deer skin. So originally the value of a deer hide was 1 Spanish peso or $1 US. So if you hear of something costing $1, well, that's where that comes from. As we move over here, you can see different trade metals that they have. So these are, some of them are Dutch, some of them are British, some of them are French. And the things that the Native Americans are really going to be desiring from the French are going to be metal items and also firearms. So here in the back you can see this 18th century flintlock musket. Also see some tomahawks here that have some brass tacks on them and are decorated in different ways. You can also see this metal pot, beads, all kinds of different things that the Osage would have desired as a trade for the different furs that they were bringing in. During this period of time, the rivers were the superhighways of the world, and with St. Louis being at the confluence of two major river systems, well, as you can imagine, there were a lot of people who were kind of rushing to this area because it became a center for commerce. And here they show some different tools that settlers would have used to build their homes. And this is really interesting to me. So for example, this tool right here is called a froe. This is a tool that was used to split wood to make shingles. And then they also have a large maul here. So this would have been used to drive nails or pins into the wood to kind of bind them together. And then here we have a smaller maul, be used for various things, one of which would be to hit the side of the froe to help split wood. And then here you have these different tools like this auger here that was used to drill holes, and then different tools for splitting wood and stripping off bark and things like that. So yeah, building a house during this period of time was very labor intensive. Here in this section, we start learning about a huge development that happened in the history of the United States, and that was the Louisiana Purchase. So here we're looking at a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And in 1803, well, in France, Napoleon Bonaparte had a bit of a problem. He was at war with most of Europe and needed money, and arranged to sell this massive chunk of ground west of the Mississippi River to the United States for $15 million. So the U.S. Really almost overnight ended up doubling in size, and immediately in 1804, Jefferson commissioned an exploration of this new Louisiana Purchase territory that was led by Lewis and Clark. So in May of 1804, Lewis and Clark are going to set out from St. Louis on their expedition. So St. Louis is literally going to become the gateway to the west. And they're primarily trying to find a water route to the Pacific Ocean via the Missouri River. And the watercraft that they used as they went up the Missouri was a keelboat. So keelboat had a light draft, was a little bit more maneuverable, could carry about 20 to 40 tons of freight. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but the whole Lewis and Clark expedition had about 50 people with it. Okay, not only are they looking for a water route to the Pacific, but they're also gathering all kinds of information. So they are getting specimens of plants and animals, and they are keeping a detailed journal, and they are meeting new Indian tribes along the way. And here we see some examples of the things that they would have brought with them. So for example, this right here is a portable lap desk, okay, because they're documenting this entire experience. And in reporting back to Jefferson, this is an 1803 Harper's Ferry rifle for hunting and also for protection. And then this tool right here is called a theodolite. This is a precision instrument that is used for measuring angles horizontally and vertically. So it's helping them as they are charting the Missouri River. And then they also would have had things like a sextant and a compass and a telescope and all kinds of different tools that are going to help them make scientific measurements and records as they are going up the Missouri River. After Lewis and Clark returned from the West in 1806, William Clark set about making a detailed map of the territory that they had explored. And afterwards, he had a place set up that was called Clark's Council Chamber that essentially advised people who were moving west, like fur traders and trappers and explorers. And at his council chamber, he would advise them and inform them about the tribes to the west, and it kind of helped them out along their journey. Anybody who wanted to go west on the Missouri River had to get a pass from Clark. So anyone who might try to go to take advantage of the Native Americans or who maybe had a disease wasn't allowed to go. So it was designed to try and protect the tribes out west, which of course we all know how that's going to end up. Now, something else that's interesting is that Clark also had a museum, so people could come and see some of the artifacts that he had collected from his journey. Now, these aren't the actual artifacts. These are original artifacts, but not from the Clark Museum. His collection went to Europe for a time and then kind of disappeared. Clark is going to die in 1838, I believe, and we don't know what happened to his stuff after that. But here you can see these different war clubs. These are items that were on his inventory. Here's a rawhide shield and some tomahawk pipes. And I always find these Native American weapons to be just extremely interesting. And for the people who were coming from the east and had no knowledge of the tribes out west, I'm sure it would have been interesting to them as well. Here in this section, they have a variety of peace medals on display. So these are medals that came in various sizes that were designed to be given as symbols of peace and friendship to the different Indian chiefs along the way. So here's one with Thomas Jefferson's likeness on it. Now, Lewis and Clark brought 32 of these along with them on their journey. And then presidents after each had their own peace medals that they sent out with representatives of the government. So here's one for James Madison. Here's one for James Monroe. This one I find a little bit humorous. This is a peace medal for the John Quincy Adams administration, and he was not pleased with the image that was cast of him on this medal because he said that the nose was too big and that he looked fat. But anyway, that ended up being the one that represented Madison. And then here we also have one for Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren. Now, throughout the first half of the 1800s, after the Lewis and Clark expedition, St. Louis is going to see some exponential growth. So not only is it a stopping point for people who are going west and going up the Missouri River, but with the development of the steamboat, well, St. Louis is going to be a hub of traffic. As a matter of fact, it's going to become the third largest port in the United States for a while. And here they have a model of what the St. Louis riverfront would have looked like during that time. I want to take a minute to talk about a historic figure who I find to be absolutely fascinating, and that is James Eads. James Eads was a businessman and engineer who was absolutely brilliant. We actually visited his grave recently here in St. Louis on a recent trip. And during the Civil War, well, James Eads made a huge contribution to the war effort with his ironclad gunboats. So in August of 1861, he received a contract from the U.S. government to build 7 of these. This was a shallow draft gunboat that could carry a large cannon, and then the bow and the sides were protected with iron plates. So anyway, they went into action at Fort Henry in Tennessee in February of 1862, and then of course there was a very famous fight between the Merrimack and the Monitor out in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Now, here in St. Louis, the thing that Eads is probably most well known for is his namesake bridge. So just to the north of the arch is the Eads Bridge. This was the first steel bridge in the world, or first steel arch bridge. And was considered to be a wonder of the world at the time. I have some ideas for a future series, and we're going to go more into depth on Eads Bridge at some point. But in short, they had these caissons that allowed workers to go down in a dry environment and basically get down to the riverbed and work below the surface and build up these pillars, and then you had this steel bridge that was built across the Mississippi River. This was going to be huge for westward expansion. There was a bottom level that could accommodate the railroad, and then the top could accommodate traffic. People were a little bit worried about this when it was first built and wondered if it would be safe. So there was this kind of an urban legend or superstition at the time that an elephant would not cross an unsafe structure. So at the inauguration of the bridge, well, they brought out an elephant to cross over this thing. And yeah, when it crossed, I guess people assumed that it was safe. But yeah, Eads Bridge is another very famous structure right here along the route to Santa Monica. Now, since we are here to see the arch and go up in it, probably would be appropriate to talk about the arch a little bit. So the history behind the St. Louis Arch is really quite interesting, and honestly goes back earlier than what I thought. So the genesis of the idea came from a lawyer named Eli Smith. You can see him there on the left. And he was traveling west from Indiana, And as he crossed over the Mississippi, well, he was inspired to have a memorial on the riverfront. By the 1930s, the railroads had really kind of absorbed a lot of what had been river traffic, and the riverfront in St. Louis was kind of run down, and he wanted to have something that would attract people. So he pitched the idea to the mayor of St. Louis at the time, a guy by the name of Bernard Dickman, who you can see there on the right. It found support with Franklin Roosevelt, and here you can see what the St. Louis riverfront looked like before. And here's another photo right here with the area being cleared out for a memorial. They ended up having a competition to see what would be the most suitable memorial for the St. Louis riverfront. So here was one of the entries right here, and this is really interesting to me to see some of the different ideas that were submitted. This is one by a guy named Harris Armstrong. He was an architect in the area. This was a runner-up in a competition that was held in 1947, right after World War II. Here was another design idea. That one actually doesn't look too bad. This was by a group of 3 architects. Here's another design that was submitted. This got second prize right here. Here's another one. This was another runner-up by a guy named T. Marshall Rainey. I don't know if I'm as big a fan of that one, but that's just personal preference. Well, the design that ended up winning was one by Eero Saarinen. So Saarinen had this idea for an arch to basically serve as the gateway to the west, being that St. Louis had traditionally served as the spot that many people passed through on their way to the west. Yeah, that's cool. Here in this display, we are looking at what is believed to be one of the only surviving scale models of the arch that is left in existence. The arch was going to be 630 feet tall and was going to be made all of stainless steel. So it's kind of appropriate that it's right here next to the Eads Bridge, the first arch steel bridge in the world. It kind of shows human progress and innovation. And to get to the top, well, Saarinen designed these things called tulip chairs that would be in these pods that we'll see here in just a little bit. But construction began in February of 1963 and continued all the way until October of 1965. And here they have a few objects that are connected with the arch, including this ceremonial shovel and this electrician's hard hat. Now, the guys who built this thing, these guys were tough as nails. This was before OSHA and some of the safety standards that we have today. So they were going up, without harnesses, and we're just wearing hard hats, which I don't know how that's going to help you if you fall 630 feet. And then they have here a few other objects that are connected with the building of the arch. Right, now here's a model of the little train pods that we are going to be taking as we are going to be going up in the arch. And you can see they have those little tulip chairs in them, and they have this little wheel that you can turn that shows how, as the pods are going up, here, let me just turn it real quick and make this thing go up. You can see that it maintains balance and stays level as you ascend. All right, we're gonna go get in the real things now. Now, this is pretty cool to get up here right at the peak of the arch where we see like this top of the curve, and then down below, well, from this side we get a good view of the mighty Mississippi River. Maybe let's take a look over here. There's a good view of Eads Bridge. And then let's see if we can get a look over here on the other side. Here we get a view of the city of St. Louis. There's Busch Stadium on the left and the old St. Louis courthouse right there. Yeah, this is really cool. All right, well, there was a little bit from the St. Louis Arch. Now, of course, the arch wasn't here during the heyday of Route 66, but it is here now, and it's an iconic stop, and I'm glad that we made it. We're gonna hop back on the road, start making our way to our final destination, and there's one little food stop along the way that I wanna make to pick up a little snack. So this obviously is the section of Route 66 that rolls through the outskirts of St. Louis, and right here along the route is a pretty well-known location here in the area known as Ted Drew's, which serves up some of the best frozen custard that you will ever have. At least that's the reputation. So Ted Drew originally opened a frozen custard shop down in Florida in 1929. It did really good, so he came back to St. Louis, opened up a few stores. This store right here actually opened up in 1941. So travelers who were coming along the route after it opened in 1941, hot summer day, you can stop here and get yourself some frozen custard. All right, all kinds of different flavors here, which makes it kind of hard to choose because there are so many. So we have a nice Route 66 themed frozen custard, which is with root beer and malt concrete. They also have a Lewis and Clark, which has granola and almonds and a bunch of trail mix in it. There's one for the St. Louis Blues hockey team. Of course, everybody around here are big Cardinals fans for baseball. I think I'm going to go with just a regular old Oreo, though. That's really good. It's really smooth. And there's a ton of people here. Like, there's a line back here at the counter. You can see all these people back here. So, yeah, we're not the only ones who are stopping here today to get a little bit of a cold treat. Now, when we set off on this trip, we established a few ground rules. One is that we would stay on Route 66 where possible. Two, we were only eating at local diners. And the third rule is that where possible, we were only going to stay at historic or locally owned hotels. Well, we have made our way from St. Louis to the town of St. Clair, Missouri, right here on Route 66. And we're going to be staying right here tonight at a place called the Pinemark Inn, which last year on Yelp was in the top 20 for best hotels in the country. All right, we just got checked in and got our stuff here in our room at the Pinemark, and holy smokes, we hit the jackpot. This place is really, really nice. So I ended up getting their suite here this evening because it was available, and honestly is really, really affordable, especially when you see what we get here. So walking into the room, they had this nice little living area with couch and a couple chairs and a little bar over here. And here's something that I appreciate is they hook you up with a few snacks here once you get into the room. And let's see, it says, to our guests, because this hotel is a human institution to serve people and not solely a money-making organization, we hope that God will grant you peace and rest while you are under our roof. May this room and hotel be your second home. May those you love be near you in thoughts and dreams. Even though we may not get to know you, we hope that you will be comfortable and happy as if you were in your own house. And then it goes on. Wow, that is really, really nice. Okay, so this is obviously a place that cares about people. Let's take a quick look at the bathroom. Oh, dang. They give you a little robe to wear after you get out of the shower. And then back here is the bedroom area. And check this out. I even got a little jacuzzi back here. But yeah, this is where we are going to be tonight along Route 66. Okay, well, I can go ahead and tell you that already I am absolutely loving this place. Just found out that in the lobby this evening they're going to have snacks and root beer floats and popcorn later on. So it has a real kind of home away from home feel here at Pinemark. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and shut the camera off for the evening. Tomorrow morning we'll get right back out, get on the road, and start making our way down Route 66.